The Tories are doing everything possible to lose North Shropshire. Can the Lib Dems really pull it off? Welcome to the Lib Dem Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Lib Dem Podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in. We have had a little bit of a break because, believe it or not, we've had real jobs to actually get on with as well. But we are delighted to welcome back Helen Morgan, who is our candidate in the Shropshire by-election, because, wow, Helen, you must have had an incredible few weeks because we're going to get all into everything. But firstly, I think the first question is, how are you doing, first of all, Helen?
Yeah, all right, thank you. Yeah, it's very intense. It's quite tiring. And at times it's been quite cold, but it's really enjoyable. It's certainly an experience, and I'm enjoying it so far.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And before we get into the whole rest of the interview, I should just learn, my name is John Potter. I am the leader of the Preston Lib Dems, and the Lib Dem podcast is done entirely by volunteers. And thank you to everyone who listens to us. And you can follow everything to do with the podcast at Lib Dem Pod. And a special thanks to all those people that give us a little bit of money every month on the Patreon account that helps keep the podcast going. We really appreciate it. So thank you very, very much. So Helen, last time we spoke, you weren't the candidate. Obviously, we knew Owen Paterson had just stood down. It was kind of like breaking news as that happened. And I suppose from that point onwards, it's been full on for you, has it?
Yeah. So there's kind of obviously a stage where you have to apply to be the candidate, and a fairly intensive process to go through there. So that was the sort of first week and a half of the process for me, as well as turning up to various car parks with a boot full of leaflets. So that was the first week. And then as the campaign teams kind of got into place, it's become more and more organised and less chaotic. I mean, equally busy, but with less chaos. I would say that first weekend was quite chaotic, but we did a superb job. I'm not going to take the credit for it. The team in Shropshire did a superb job that first weekend. We got about 10,000 leaflets out with less than 48 hours notice. So, you know, it was brilliant from the start, really.
And I think one of the things that certainly came across right from the start is that Team Shropshire were like, no, we want to go for this. This is our chance to really put our foot forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've always felt that we've underperformed a bit at the polls. I think we feel like we have a core Liberal vote here that we haven't kind of managed to sort of, you know, activate. And this is a golden opportunity with a bit of extra resource behind us to do that. So, and if we look at where we came in 2019, we got 10%, and we struggled with some of the issues with the printing election workshops, and obviously we weren't a target seat because this is a Leave area. So we've always felt that, you know, there's a good chunk of vote out there for us, and if we had a few more boots on the ground and a bit of time behind us, we could mobilise it. So we're really keen as mustard to get a good result here.
And we should just point out to all our listeners and viewers that you're actually at HQ. So HQ is just outside of web. So if you hear some background noises going on, that is actually a good sign, because that means that an active HQ is going. We'll talk a little bit about HQ in a second. But I think firstly, for some people, Helen, they'll probably want to know a little bit about yourself. So who is Helen Morgan?
Well, I've always lived in the Midlands. I've only been in Shropshire for about 8 years. But I grew up near Nottingham in a quite a similar sort of area to this, really, sort of farming, South Nottinghamshire. And then my parents moved over to Stone because of my dad's job. So that's the kind of West Midlands bit, and they're still there. I've got a history degree. I trained to be an accountant in London. And then my husband and I moved back here about 8 years ago, just because we wanted to be, you know, out of the rat race, really, I guess. So we both work locally, and it's just a lovely, lovely place to live. And I'm closer to my mum and dad and my sister now. So
what got you into politics, and what kind of got you to sign up to the Lib Dems?
Well, I'm probably quite a rare breed. So in 2015, I read all the manifestos because I was I'm historically a Labour voter, bit disillusioned with them after a number of things that happened. I guess the war and I found Ed Miliband a little bit off-putting, I guess. So I read all the manifestos, and it was like a moment of enlightenment. So I should have always voted Lib Dem. I'm clearly a Lib Dem. Yeah. You know, it's my values, it's everything that speaks to me. So I voted Lib Dem for the first time in 2015, and then the day after the referendum, I joined the party because I just thought, you know what, should have got involved. You can't win unless you get involved. So.
Yeah. And actually, so that's a almost a meteoric rise for you from joining the party in 2016 to suddenly being a candidate in a parliamentary by-election. You must think, where was I 6 years ago? Kind of moment.
Yeah. So in 2019, we had a councillor here, well, an ex-councillor here, who was a sort of experienced campaigner, and he encouraged me to become an approved candidate and be the candidate in that election. So that happened in the summer before. We didn't know when the election was going to be, and was really supportive of me. And unfortunately, he died last year. So we're really missing him actually in this campaign. He'd be so chuffed if he was here. But by-elections just happen, don't they? It's just luck for me. I'm just kind of happened to be in the right place at the right time.
Hello, John from the Lib Dem Podcast here. We are delighted to say that this episode is sponsored by Prater Rains. Now more than ever, you need a professional-looking online presence and website. Prater Rains have been helping Liberal Democrat campaigns succeed for 18 years. Their Lib Dem Foci package combines a website, social media and email system to help Lib Dems win. You'll receive great support from real people, fair pricing and a huge range of features to choose from. Prater Rains are already the bespoke developers for Lighthouse, Lib Dem Draw Online and the LD Directory. They combine a talented system design with an unrivaled understanding of our party, our data and our systems. To find out more, check out the Prater Rains website at praterrains.co.uk/liberal-democrats. In case people have been living under a stone somewhere, which they might have been. So this by-election was caused because Owen Paterson was breached the rules regarding lobbying in terms of companies he was involved in as an MP. And then there was a whole scandal with the Tories seemed to want to try and cover up and change the rules, which made it 10 times worse. And so then Owen Paterson resigned. Hence, we now have this by-election. We have 14 candidates. You are one of 14 candidates, and we have everything from a Boris Johnson impersonator right the way to the party, who is based in Monaco, which again, by-elections throw up these kind of crazy situations.
Yeah.
I mean, now that it's up and running, I said, if anyone's not been to the Shropshire by-election, get yourself there. We'll talk more about that later. But the HQ behind you is absolutely... I've never known such a nice by-election HQ ever.
Yeah, so we're lucky enough to have a member who runs a hotel, and it's in a beautiful 15th century building. And then there are sort of function bar, a converted barn along the side, which is used for functions. And he's very kindly let us use that for HQ. And it is lovely. I'm sitting upstairs where it's quietest. And all the background noise you can hear is all the people stuffing envelopes below me. There's a big team down there today. We've got 14,000 envelopes to stuff. And it's very nice. But
so have you met any of the other candidates yet? I mean, there's a lot of controversy about the Tory candidate, which we'll get into when we talk about how it's feeling on the ground. But how are the other parties behaving or not doing anything?
It's quite quiet, I would say. We've seen a little bit of evidence of the Conservatives canvassing, but certainly not targeting postal voters in the same way that we have, because they were going to different doors. Labour have very few activists on the ground here, and obviously, they haven't had their leadership here. They're clearly not treating it as a priority. So we've not seen much from the Labour guy, and ditto from all of the other kind of random
odds and sods kind of turn up. Yeah.
Greens, we think, are sort of concentrating on Oswestry, which is where they've got a couple of councillors.
Yeah, so the Greens are basically protecting a patch that they have kind of locally, and because, let's say, I've been down twice. I've seen an odd green leaflet. I've seen nothing from anyone else. But let's take it back. So 2019, you stood as the parliamentary candidate. Now we came third in that election. Now, like I say, caveats of 2019 was a very odd. And actually, you remember that 2019 kind of came out of nowhere as well. We kind of thought, okay, an election might happen. Then it was suddenly like, right, we're going. So Labour did come second with 22% of the vote. We got 10% of the vote in third. Tories had a massive 62% or 62.7%. So it's a very comfortable majority for the Conservatives, which is probably why Labour aren't doing much in it. They've got other battles, whether that's going to be Leicester East or other by-elections that are probably coming their way. But it has meant, in a sense, that we've been given a shot to nothing with this, haven't we? We've got nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Yeah, I mean, in 2019, interestingly, we doubled our vote share. So we went from 5% to 10%. And Labour were going backwards in 2019. And then in the local elections this year, we came very clearly second. So I think Labour came fourth, in fact. They just don't, I have no insight into what goes on in Labour, but they don't seem to have any capacity across the constituency. So they didn't field as many candidates as us. And therefore they've just got a much lower vote share. So we're very clearly second this May, and we did a good campaign in May. We canvassed a lot of doors, so I'm knocking on doors now where people recognise me, and if not me, they've had contact with somebody who was a council candidate. So it has given us a good platform to move forward from, and May was a doubling again from 2019. So, and the other thing that's really noticeable is that Brexit really isn't coming up on the doors at all.
Yep. Not one person mentioned it to me, actually. Not one.
Yeah, I mean, I reckon I've knocked on about 500, 600 doors, and one person who was a Remainer has talked to me about it, and I've had one leaver who wasn't very happy with the Lib Dems, and I can't believe it's less than half a percent really.
And that's interesting, because we think about Cheshire and Amersham, where that was a heavily Remain area. And again, not many people mentioned it there either. So whether Brexit is not the deciding issue anymore, which might be actually quite useful. I mean, there'll be people that are disgruntled with the Tories for all sorts of different reasons. But again, on the doors in a Leave vote, because this was, I can't remember what North Shropshire.
It's about 60% Leave.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's strongly Leave, but it's not ridiculously strongly Leave.
Yeah. But for that, no one's mentioning it is very interesting.
Yeah, I just don't think people think it's a live issue anymore. Get Brexit done, it's done, we've left, and now they want to be able to get an ambulance when they need one. It's
because that's certainly an issue that's got. I know it's on your leaflets. We've seen about there's been so many things happening with the governments, between social care, the ambulance services, even just or localized issues like the roads in Shropshire are absolutely horrendous and things like that. There's lots of good campaigns for the Lib Dems to sink their teeth in and to actually give a positive message for change.
Yeah, I mean, the ambulance issue, I know is a national issue, and that it's, people are waiting too long for ambulances everywhere. But because we've had issues with our hospitals as well, it's kind of extremely bad here. I mean, on Saturday, I was canvassing with Sarah Olney, and she knocked on the door of a lady who'd lost her husband in the last couple of weeks while waiting for an ambulance. It's really real, and it's really upsetting when that happens, but it shows that you've picked on the right issues, and we need to campaign on these issues, because people's lives at stake ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's talk about what's happening on the ground. So I've had 2 sessions down in Shropshire about what's going on. So I can give you what I feel, and then you can probably tell me if I'm right or I'm wrong. So clearly, for those that don't know, the Conservatives have picked a gentleman who's based out of Birmingham to do it. Now, we have obviously highlighted that fact because you're local, you live in the constituency, while they've parachuted in a candidate, so to speak. And I cannot describe to you how badly that's gone down across everyone. And what I found most interesting about the conversation I did 2 days ago, was there were people who were generally quite still pro-Tory, as in people who thought, Boris Johnson had done the best he can. They knew Owen Paterson. These were really strong, firm Tories, and they were still switching to the Lib Dems. Now, for those of us who do campaigning a lot, direct switching from the main party to you is gold dust. It's absolutely gold dust in terms of, and if that's Adam, and it wasn't just one or two, there were many, many people in just the kind of patch I did on Saturday. So is that being reflected? Have the Tories really messed this up?
I think so. I mean, it comes up on every other door you knock on, basically. People around here, we don't have a transient population in the way that you might do in an urban area. People have lot of people here have lived here their whole lives, and they're offended actually that he's not local, or at least he hasn't come from a similar type of place.
And it's a bit like, again, reflection on Cheshire and Amersham, where the Tory candidate there just kind of got dropped in, and it just went down so badly, and just gives Tory voters that might be grumpy for all sorts of reasons with the Conservative Party, because, the Conservative Party's had all sorts of issues going on nationally, that it gives them an excuse not to vote Tory. And in a by-election, when the Lib Dems can throw effort into it, that is just a terrible strategy from their point of view.
Yeah. I mean, he hasn't even got a Birmingham, he's even got his Birmingham address on the ballot paper. So he hasn't even found somewhere to stay for the duration of the election, which we can't believe, basically.
Yeah. And that'll be the final thing they see, won't it? When they go in, they'll see, but you know what? We can thank the Tories for that as well, because I suppose one of the things that some people might be saying, let's think what some people say. So why are the Lib Dems fighting here when we came third? That would be one. And you've already mentioned we are actually on an upward curve, Labour on a downward curve. So actually we are the people to challenge it. But also, by-elections aren't just about winning. We saw that. I mean, I didn't think we were going to win Cheshire and Amersham, but the lasting legacy of a by-election. So for you guys, not only are you getting thousands of points of data, you're getting new volunteers, new members, new state sites. There are more victories than just them winning a by-election.
Yeah, I mean, we're really encouraged by the data that we've got in so far. I think we're going to get a really, really good result here. Yeah. And yeah, it's we've got new members already. It's a massive boost for the local party. There's no question about it.
But also what Cheshire Amersham is that we can win this as well, and that's really important.
But we can't win unless people come and help us, really. So we need, this is a big area. It's almost as big as Greater London, with 80,000 voters in it, and we need boots on the ground to reach all those people and put the leaflets in their doors and knock on their doors. And we're finding that the human contact, the canvassing is actually, we're actually changing people's minds on the doorstep. So we really do need people to come and help us. Yeah,
because again, most of our listeners and viewers will have heard us talk about this. When you're taking on an area that's new, or places that haven't had much contact because they've lived in a very safe Tory area or a very safe Labour area, actually getting them to switch, the human contact, a face-to-face or a phone contact, giving them that nudge to say, well, you know what, I didn't know who to vote for, but actually the Lib Dems came and knocked on my door, is extremely powerful and one of the biggest indicators of a successful campaign.
Yeah, I mean, and lots of people say, no one's ever asked us what we think before. And it is really, really powerful. People feel like they're being listened to. We got a bit of a head start with that in May. And again, the feedback was the same. You are literally the first person who's ever knocked on my door, and I've lived here for 35 years, whatever. And it goes down really, really well.
And so just to put everyone as well in the time frame, we haven't told people when the date of the election is. So it's the 16th of December. I assume most people who listen to this know that. So postal voters have started landing it. Again, this is why we had a big push this weekend gone, didn't we? And I suppose we should thank, on behalf of, firstly, everyone who came and helped, but also for people like me and you, Helen, who to get this sort of support from HQ and the staff, they really do go above and beyond and hours beyond anyone could imagine.
The team here are working so hard. They're tired now, but they're doing an absolutely fabulous job. They really are a great team. And as a candidate in a by-election, which obviously a new experience for me, you really have to trust your team because they're doing all of the heavy lifting basically, and they're absolutely superb. They're doing an amazing job.
Sorry, go on.
And I was just going to say, and then all the people that made it this weekend through the storm. I mean, it was quite spectacular here. We had a lot of trees down. I had to move a fence off my driveway before I got out on Saturday morning. It really was quite bad, the storm here on Friday night. And the people that made it all the way through the weather, and then the bitter cold on Saturday.
Yeah, I can attest that. I mean, I am a fairly large guy who burns quite hot anyway. I had a thick t-shirt on, a jumper and a jacket, and it was still very cold.
It perishing on Saturday. Yeah. So thank you to everybody who did that. And then yesterday, of course, it poured with rain and it was cold again. So just, massive thanks to all those people that have volunteered and given up their time and stood in the cold weather so far.
And again, that kind of highlights, there's things that are affecting, and it's a bit like Brecon and Radnorshire. You've got lots of little communities here, there and everywhere. So it makes canvassing slower than it normally would be. So you need more people. And likewise, when you get into a winter sort of election, again, wind, rain, other things getting away, slows you down more than usual. So actually getting boots on the ground is so important to make sure we keep pushing, because you know what, I think of other by-elections where whether we win or lose, actually, the more people, the more legacy that by-election creates is so important to a local area.
Yeah. I mean, the other sort of problem we've got with it being December is evening canvassing is pretty much a non-starter, because you can't see where you're going. It's very poorly lit, even in the towns in North Shropshire. So you can't pick out which houses you're meant to be going to, and people are quite reluctant to open their doors, which is understandable. So, the canvassing in the evening that we've done has been pretty poor, and just in terms of getting people to answer.
Yeah.
So we're kind of confined to daylight hours. So we do need boots on the ground, absolutely.
So you think that so just to, again, for listeners who are listening to this straight away, this is coming out on the Monday, so we might only have 2 weekends left to go out and get those doors, because there'll be some people, like we know postal voters of London, we know how important they are. That from the canvassing I was doing, the work we've done to target those postal voters has clearly been working, in terms that we are getting Tories to switch, we are getting Labour vote feeling squeezed, and actually no one even mentioned they were voting for the Greens, but that kind of, the other parties are getting squeezed. The fact that if you want rid of the Tories, vote for Helen, that seems to be working. But if we're going to, there'll be people, particularly the Labour vote, because, like I say, that's not an insignificant chunk of votes, that 20% they get, actually squeezing that they vote later. There's not so many postal votes. So we have a couple of weekends and, of course, polling week to really get out there and get to those Labour and soft Tory voters.
Yeah, but we really do need people on the ground, as I say, because we can't keep going until 10 o'clock at night, because it's dark at 4:30.
Yeah, that's right. So, right, how else can people help? So obviously there is obviously get there if you can. Not everyone can. There's phone canvassing sessions going on. People can donate money as well. I say all these by-elections do cost money. You've, like say, you've got your HQ, you've got leaflets, you've got all sorts of stuff going. So they're the ways people can help.
That's right. Yeah. So we need, if you don't fancy wandering around in the cold, which is understandable, we still have loads of clerical jobs to do, lots of envelopes to be stuffed, addresses to be written on envelopes, and so on and so forth. So the HQ is lovely and warm. There's plenty of tea and biscuits. So if you want to come and sit in the warm and have a chat with some really nice Lib Dems, those jobs need doing as well. Obviously, we need people to deliver and canvass. There's 3 marathons a week, I think. You can get the details of those on the North Shropshire by-election Facebook HQ. And what else have I missed?
No, I think you must be nearly there.
Yes, you can donate.
You can donate, yeah. Like I said, always, and there's a donate to the campaign. Obviously, most people have had the emails from HQ telling people how to donate. But what's really interesting for me, and I don't mind saying this publicly, is that after May's election, some areas like where I am had rough sets of elections in May. We didn't do as well as what we had hoped. And myself and one of my other councillors came down on Saturday. And we had both, after that May elections, had taken a bit of a beating. He had lost a ward colleague, and he came away from Saturday really enthused, really excited. It was because let's be completely honest, we're in the mid-election cycle slump right now. People are going, we've got more years of this Tory government. How are we going to cope with it? And it can be difficult to motivate yourself when you're like in the middle of a general election cycle. Yeah. This is a perfect way of motivating yourself. Actually being around a fantastic campaign with a brilliant candidate, trying to do some good in an area that, like I said, it's a shot to nothing for us. We've got there's nothing to lose for the Lib Dems here. It's almost like the perfect pitch. And that is one of the great things about by-elections as well, is that energy you can get from it.
Oh yeah, and I said that it's a really nice feel here. The team's up for it. People have travelled from all over the country. Not even further than where you've come from, even further than Preston. I've got that right, haven't I?
You have got that right. That's right. Of course. Centre of the universe. That's right. No, but I have seen people from London, from Edinburgh, all sorts of places coming down.
Yeah, Cornwall, I think. So we've had people from all over the place, and it's got a really, really nice feel to it.
So what's your final message for listeners then before we wrap up this interview? And I'll let you, because you said about going out, it's going to start getting dark in about 2 hours. After we've got, you have to go out and get canvassing again. So what's your final message to listeners?
It is, there is something exciting happening here. The data looks really, really good, but we can't win unless you come and help us. We really do need people to come and help us.
Well, thank you so much, Helen. Thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, I will say from my point of view, you are doing such a great job handling everything that a by-election has to throw at you. So, and you were brilliant on Saturday, meeting and greeting all the volunteers that came and things like that. So just keep sane, I suppose is the answer. keep enjoying it. And I'm going back down to Shropshire on polling day week. I can't make it this weekend, unfortunately, because other things booked, but if you can make it, do get down there. If you can spare a bit of money, do that. If you can get on the phones, please do that as well. There are loads of ways of helping that cost you no money and just a little bit of time, but if you do have a bit of money or a bit of time, do go help. So thank you so much to everyone for listening and watching to the podcast. We'll be back with a lot more episodes, including we've got some more of our candidate episodes for parliamentary selections that have happened, but also we are approaching, believe it or not, our 150th episode. So we will be doing a live in-person episode where you'll get much more details about that. And we've also got a Christmas giveaway coming up as well. So thank you everyone for watching. Make sure you follow Helen. I'll put all the links to the Shropshire HQ and everything in the details. Of course, you can only do that if you're a Lib Dem. So any sneaky Tory members, hello by the way, who are watching this, thank you for getting to the end of the show. But thank you, Helen, once again. Have a wonderful rest of your day, Helen, and we will be back with another episode very soon.